Cue and Review, celebrating 40 years of audio production, welcomes you to this week's edition of the Glasgow Times Sports Podcast, recorded from our studio in the Bishopbriggs Media Centre and by our volunteers working from home. Keep up to date with Cue and Review news via our Facebook, Twitter or Instagram at Cue and Review, that's @CUEANDREVIEW, or get in touch with us directly by emailing information@cueandreview.com, that's INFORMATION @CUEANDREVIEW.com, or by calling 0141 772 3976. Please like and share our podcast and give us constructive feedback.
From the Glasgow Times, Tuesday, 18th of April, 2023. Sports section. New Celtic away kit for 2023-24 season leaked as images surface. By Ewan Payton, sports writer. Celtic's away kit for next season has seemingly been leaked online. An image has appeared on social media of a brand new design for the Hoops alternative jersey to the 2023-2024 campaign. Shared by Footy Headlines, the new Adidas design appears to show a black and green hoop top with similar patterns on the shorts. Of course, these images still have to be verified, but these leaked pictures could have given fans a glimpse of what to expect come Celtic's annual kit release in the summer. The Dafabet sponsorship is on the front, as per usual. The green sections of the hoops also appeared to have a sort of tartan-like patchiness to them. The sleeves of the top are all black with green trims around the edges and at the collar. Meanwhile, Kyle Vassell reckons playing against Celtic is similar to his experiences competing with Premier League clubs. The Kilmarnock striker faced the unenviable task of playing as a lone striker for much of the 4-1 defeat at Rugby Park and admitted Celtic are up there with the top teams that he's ever faced. When I played Premier League teams in the Cup, genuinely the top teams, said Vassell, when asked if he could compare Celtic to other clubs that he has played. Callum McGregor is so good, he's so good at football. He runs you away to make space for other players and have Taylor coming onto the pitch. The way they are organised, they are so disciplined, they just keep the ball. My comparison would be a Premier League team. That article was by Ewan Payton. From the Glasgow Times, Tuesday, 18th of April, 2023. Sports section. Michael Beale warning as pundit picks out sporting director replacement. By Ewan Payton, sports writer. Charlie Nicholas has warned Michael Beale that he cannot do it all himself at Rangers. The Ibrox manager last week revealed that he will front a sizable portion of the duties Ross Wilson left behind after the sporting director joined Nottingham Forest. Rangers are expected to announce a replacement for Wilson in the summer, but until then it seems Beale will carry on with his recruitment planning as well as coaching the first team. That's no easy feat though, and former Celtic ace Nicholas reckons it will leave Beale with far too much on his plate, with 6 league games, a semi-final and potential final still to come for Rangers in the coming months. Nicholas believes Rangers must act swiftly to replace Wilson, and the pundit is adamant that David Weir is the right man to take on the job. He wrote in his Daily Express column, "There's no way Michael Beale can continue to do both the job of manager and sporting director at Rangers. He has a really clever football brain, is very knowledgeable, but adopting Ross Wilson's responsibilities on top of his own is just impossible." With the Scot jumping ship to Nottingham Forest, Beale has told Ibrox Chiefs he can perform a dual role until the end of the season. But he's taking on too much. It will eventually reach a point where he just gets the blame for everything. Beale is getting caught up in too many issues and it doesn't look like he has enough support. There doesn't seem to be a clear strategic plan at Ibrox. Rangers need to go back to the drawing board because as things stand, they have no hope of toppling Celtic. Unless Ange Postecoglou leaves and if Beale isn't aiming to flex his muscles in the transfer market this summer, then they will continue to be a substandard team that's way behind their old firm rivals. So who should Gers turn to when looking for Wilson's replacement? The likes of Christian Nerlinger has been linked with the vacancy, but for me, the standout candidate is David Weir. He's been at Rangers as both a player and assistant manager to Mark Warburton, so he knows what the club is all about. If Weir can be lured from Brighton, where he has been technical director for a year, it would be a no-brainer. The 52-year-old is experienced in this field and will be well aware of where Rangers need to get to. The Ibrox board need to take an appointment very quickly. They then have to put a blueprint in place to take the club forward. Otherwise, it will just continue to drift. I'm sure Beale has an idea of where he wants to take things, but he has to be assertive and tell his bosses what he needs. If not, the fans will come after him and the board again. The Rangers fans have been looking for someone to blame, and for months Dave King has been criticising his successor as chairman, Douglas Park. With Park resigning a fortnight ago, Wilson was left standing as a scapegoat, but there isn't a sporting director who'll get every single transfer right. That article was by Ewan Payton. From the Glasgow Times, Tuesday the 18th of April 2023. Sports section. Joey Barton rejects Rangers flop title amid Hearts, Hibs or Aberdeen pledge. By Ewan Payton, sports writer. Joey Barton insists he'll need to return to Scotland one day in order to shut up his strong critics from either half of the Glasgow divide. The Bristol Rovers manager is fed up reading stories about him being branded a Gers flop, and so the former Manchester City, Burnley and QPR midfielder is adamant he will need to take over at Hearts, Hibs or Aberdeen to ram it down the old firm's throats. The 40-year-old left Ibrox under a cloud in 2016, having fallen out with then manager Mark Warburton. He had his contract terminated just 5 months into a 2-year contract after a training ground bust-up with Andy Halliday. While he's remembered in these parts for being a failure from his short stint in Glasgow, Barton is determined to prove everybody wrong with a return to the Premiership. He told The Sun, "Every time I read a Scottish paper, it's a case of flop Barton. It's the only blot on my copybook as a player. Maybe there's one thing for it, and that means I'll have to go back to Scotland and take charge of Hibs, Aberdeen or Hearts and ram it down the old firm's throat." He also insists the clubs would have won their 55th title long before Steven Gerrard arrived if he had been backed over Warburton at the time. "You know what you've done, and I don't need anyone else to tell me that. I was a brilliant player," he added. "I know better than anyone else what I contributed when I pulled that shirt on, and that's all that matters to me. If all the papers or the propaganda the clubs put out is favourable to you, then you see there's a good rapport when you go back. The only exception is with Rangers. My time at Ibrox is the only black mark I've got in my copybook as a player. I can't count myself successful as a Rangers player because I fell out with the manager there and wasn't allowed enough time to prove myself. But look at what's happened to Mark Warburton since we went our separate ways. It's been a case of sacked, sacked and sacked. Now he's first team coach at West Ham, and look what's happened to David Moyes since he's arrived. But if the powers that be had got rid of Warburton and stuck by me, they would have won their 55th title a lot sooner than they did under Steven Gerrard. But Rangers made a bed for themselves and Warburton, and they have to lie in it." That article was by Ewan Payton.
This is from the Glasgow Times on Wednesday the 19th of April 2023, from the sports section. Celtic hero backs club to do business over Abda transfer link. This article is written by Aidan MacDonald. Former Celtic striker Andy Walker reckons the Hoops would be willing to do business over Lille Abda. The Israel international has been linked with a move to European giants Ajax, and Walker thinks the Parkhead side would be prepared to let the winger go. Abder has 12 goals and 7 assists in 41 appearances for Ange Postecoglou's team so far this season, and the ex-Scotland international feels he could move on. Speaking on the Go Radio football show, he said, "I think Celtic have shown over the last number of years that they are a club who are always willing to do business. And if Ajax are in for Abder, from memory, I think he's got around 10 goals this season, but he doesn't play enough for himself. I think he's fit. I think Celtic will do business. They will make a profit from him and they will go and get someone else. And you've got to say he's had a terrific attitude. He has been brilliant in big games. He has been brilliant against Rangers. He has scored goals on the big occasion and has looked an exciting player. Celtic will miss him, much the same way as they miss Yakumaki and Juranovic. These guys come and go, and you change the menu pretty regularly." Meanwhile, Neil Lennon has revealed he was partly responsible for persuading Celtic winger Mikey Johnston to quit Scotland and play for Ireland. The former Scotland under-21 star switched international allegiances earlier this year and announced he wanted to play for Ireland instead, despite winning 8 caps for Scott Gemmell's side and scoring a wonder goal against England at the 2018 Toulon tournament. And former Hoops boss Lennon revealed he tried to persuade Johnston to dump the Scots, along with his then Parkhead coach Damien Duff, the ex-Chelsea and Ireland ace. Lennon said, "Damien and I were pestering Mikey for months and months, saying don't play for Scotland, play for Ireland. A plethora of injury problems curtailed him, but if Mikey can stay fit, he would be a real bonus for Ireland. Hopefully his injury problems are behind him, because he's a lovely boy, and I hope he makes a good run of it." That article was written by Aidan MacDonald. This is from the Glasgow Times on Wednesday the 19th of April 2023, from the sports section. Ex-Rangers ace James Sands slates standard of Scottish Premiership. This article is written by Ian Collin. James Sands has criticised the standard of opposition he faced in the Scottish Premiership as he prepares to make a return to international football with the United States. Sands' 18-month loan spell at Rangers was cut short when he returned to New York City in the MLS last month. Rangers had an option to buy the defensive midfielder as part of the 22-year-old's deal, but with game time expected to be limited under Michael Beale, Sands himself expressed a desire to return to the States early. He has since praised Rangers and their supporters, but following a call-up to the US squad to face Mexico in a friendly on Thursday, the youngster has claimed he faces a greater test playing in his homeland than he did in his 24 games in the Scottish Premiership. Speaking of the demands of playing in the MLS, he said, "I really look forward to those sorts of challenges. That's something I get here in MLS that I didn't get at all, really, in Scotland and the league there, so it's a nice change. Those guys, the opposition players, will get the better of me sometimes, but it's all about learning. I'm still a young player, and I'm trying to improve, so those are night shifts I really look forward to." Sands last played in the US in the 4-1 victory over Honduras in September 2021 and was last in a matchday squad in March last year. He added to the New York City website, "It's good. I've been out of the national team for a little bit now, so it's nice to have another opportunity. It's just a couple days I'm there, so I just have to give it everything. I think I've worked really hard over the last couple months, so I'm very excited." Meanwhile, Rangers boss Michael Beale has talked up midfielder Todd Cantwell ahead of this weekend's trip to Pittodrie to face Aberdeen. He said, "Todd's playing well. There's more to come." That article was written by Ian Collin. This is from the Glasgow Times on Wednesday the 19th of April 2023, from the sports section. Chris Doolan eager to extend Partick Thistle's players' contracts. This article is written by James Kearney. Chris Doolan is eager to start tying his Partick Thistle players down on longer deals at Firhill, with the end of the season fast approaching. The Championship club are challenging for promotion to the top flight, and the majority of the playing squad are out of contract when the current campaign concludes, although this is often the case in the second tier and below. 5-day extensions were handed out earlier this year to ensure the team is under contract in the eventuality that the Jags are competing in the Premiership playoff final. Doolan has got the ball rolling in his efforts to extend the affected player's stay in Maryhill, and is hopeful he will get the all clear to push ahead in the not-so-distant future. "It's something that we would like to get done as soon as possible," the Thistle manager explained. "The aim is that we get these things done on the move, and in the background we will be doing it. It's just a case where once we receive the green light to do these things, we can. But it's up to us to put things in place so that when you get the green light, you don't have to hang about. That's what we are doing just now. We are just trying to put the wheels in motion for players that are already here, so everybody is comfortable. But until we get that green light to go ahead, there's not much else we can do, so we're just waiting on that." Having players in the final 6 months of their contract means that they are allowed to speak to other clubs and agree moves elsewhere. But Doolan is not overly concerned by the prospect of top-flight teams poaching his star men. He explained, "The year we won the Championship, 2012 to 2013, half our squad was out of contract. I was out of contract, and so were the other players. I know how it works, but I think as a player, your focus is on the club you are at, and if you're doing well, then why would you be looking elsewhere? I think just now it's about keeping your focus, and I know that is the case. I know the type of players we have and the professionalism we have, so it's about continuing what we are doing, because we are doing something right and not changing that mentality between now and the end of the season." Doolan has been very much working on a game-by-game basis since he succeeded Ian McCall at Firhill back in February, as he aims to guide the Jags back to the Premiership. At this stage of the season, managers often have one eye on the upcoming summer of recruitment, but the Thistle boss won't be getting ahead of himself. The Championship run-in, he says, has given him enough on his plate as it is. "Right now we've got to focus on what is happening here," he added. "I know the role in terms of looking forward to next season, but we have to take care of these things right now in the short term. It's about having a plan and an idea of where we want things to go, but until we're given the green light, it's just a plan really. But it's about being ready for whatever eventuality comes." That article was written by James Kearney. This is from the Glasgow Times on Wednesday the 19th of April 2023, from the sports section. Lowland League Club details Celtic, Rangers and Hearts B team no vote. This article was written by Ewan Payton. East Stirlingshire have detailed their decision to vote against allowing B teams into the Lowland League. Despite their feelings, the inclusion of Celtic, Rangers and Hearts B teams in next season's competition was last night confirmed. The majority of Lowland League sides voted in favour of the Premiership side's cult teams returning again. A short statement on the Parks Motor Group Scottish Lowland League social media account confirming the decision read, "We can confirm that members have voted in favour of including B teams for season 2023-24. This vote comes following the pyramid review undertaken by the Scottish FA this season. Spartans won the division, with the Hoops and Rangers finishing second and third respectively, while the Jambos managed a 13th spot finish in the league. While Celtic, Rangers and Hearts young guns will return for another crack of the whip, East Stirlingshire have revealed the reasons for opposing the move. A statement reads, East Stirlingshire have tonight, alongside other SLFL clubs, been asked to vote for the inclusion of B teams for season 2023-24. Together as a club, we will be voting no. As we look to build a new era for East Stirlingshire, we want the foundation to be built on integrity, support, and to lead the way on sustainability. We, as a club, believe the proposed inclusion of B teams and the subsequent birth of a conference league, which we feel is being forced upon us, is not in the best interest of Scottish football and only highlights and benefits the might of the big clubs at the expense of the smaller club. From small acorns grow great oak trees, with which lower league football plays a huge part, and should be given the opportunity of building a foundation to stand on their own merit for the future of Scottish football. What Scottish football requires is a properly constructed and ventilated pyramid structure that allows all clubs to find their competitive level. Talk's cheap. Action wins the day. That article was written by Ewan Payton. This is from the Glasgow Times on Wednesday the 19th of April 2023, from the sports section. Willie Miller points to Rangers' defensive issues in Aberdeen message. This article is written by Aidan Smith. Willie Miller insists Aberdeen have nothing to fear when they go up against Rangers on Pittodrie on Sunday. The Don's legend has pointed to Rangers' defensive frailties, and he feels that his former side can hurt Michael Beale's team. Aberdeen are currently 6 wins on the bounce under the leadership of Barry Robson, and Miller reckons there could be a chance of a 7th. He explained, Aberdeen have absolutely nothing to fear going into the game against Rangers at Pittodrie on Sunday. Rangers can blow hot and cold at times, and have had issues defensively recently. Manager Barry Robson will certainly not be blasé ahead of the game against Rangers. However, the Dons will be thinking that this is the right time to get the Ibrox club. It is a home fixture and the last game before the Premiership split. In-form Aberdeen also face Rangers on the back of 6 straight wins. The Dons will be looking for some revenge after the last game against Rangers at Pittodrie somehow ended in defeat. Aberdeen have completely turned around their form under Barry Robson, though, and are in a good place ahead of the game with Rangers. Manager Robson has approached games in a sensible way and has very decent players. Under his guidance, the Dons are solid in defence and dangerous in attack. They are now in a fabulous position to finish 3rd in the Premiership. Achieving that would constitute an incredible turnaround since the January transfer window and appointment of Robson. Meanwhile, Aberdeen have appealed against Graham Shinney's red card in Friday night's victory over Ross County. The Don skipper was sent off in stoppage time of the 1-0 cinch Premiership win in Dingwall for his sliding challenge on county defender Jack Baldwin. Referee Ewan Anderson dismissed the 31-year-old after looking at the pitchside monitor at the behest of the VAR. Shinney, on loan from Wigan, was also sent off against St Johnstone at McDiarmid Park 2 weeks ago. A statement on Aberdeen's official Twitter account read, The club this morning confirms it has appealed the red card shown to Graham Shinney during Friday night's cinch Premiership match against Ross County. A further update will be provided once we have been notified of the outcome of the appeal. And that article was written by Aidan Smith.
The Glasgow Times on the 20th of April and the sports section. Celtic legend gives verdict on Player of the Year candidates by Liam Bruce. While they may be making light work of wrapping up another Premiership title, there's nothing straightforward about settling on a pick for the bunch from Celtic's champions-elect. Ange Postecoglou's side are cruising towards being crowned the top team in the country for the second campaign in a row, having built a commanding 12-point lead over Rangers at the top. They've done so by winning a startling 30 of the 32 league matches, losing only once. They could yet finish the season on a record 107 points, outdoing even the Brendan Rodgers team, which went through an entire campaign unbeaten. With 6 league games left, they are 15 goals short of the club's all-time record goals haul for a single campaign. 102 scored thus far, and only 24 conceded in the league. There's little doubt Celtic have made themselves worthy champions. It also makes it fiendishly difficult to select just one player of the year. The favourite, though, is likely to be Kyogo Furuhashi. The Japanese forward has 28 goals across 41 appearances in all competitions, and it would be a major surprise if he did not push well beyond the 30 mark between now and season's end. It's not just volume. The importance of the 28-year-old's contributions have been immense. It was his double against Rangers which effectively put the ribbons on the league trophy earlier this month. A late equaliser at Ibrox in early January denied Michael Beale an early momentum swing in his team's ultimately fruitless bid to rein in their rivals. Celtic have not ceded any ground whatsoever since. Kyogo may be the front-runner, but it nonetheless remains a crowded field. Representing the Defenders Union, Jackie McNamara makes a strong case for Cameron Carter-Vickers. It may be a tall order for a centre-back to take the top individual prize in a side which could break goal-scoring records, but that's how good the former Celtic captain believes Carter-Vickers. I think there's been a number of players in top form, including Kyogo, with his goals, he said. But Cameron Carter-Vickers, for me, has been immense. A lot of what he does maybe goes unnoticed because Celtic are always on the attack. But when the full-backs are forward, there's more onus on the centre-backs to defend properly. Rio Hatate has also been immense. You see him getting better every week as well. Aaron Mui has been really good in midfield. There likely would not be much in the way of serious grumbling if it were to be Carter-Vickers, such has been his consistency and popularity. The USA international has been the foundation for Postecoglou, an ever-reliable rock who often makes defending against Premiership forwards look a bit too easy. There tends to be a hint of recency bias in such comparisons, but some Celtic fans have even insisted that he has better for the club than Virgil van Dijk was. Up for debate, perhaps, but it displays the strength of feeling for a player who was recruited in the very last hours of Postecoglou's first transfer window. McNamara, of course, knows a thing or two about playing in Celtic's back line. With 358 appearances to his name, the now 48-year-old lined up alongside the likes of Bobo Baldi, Johan Majalibi and Mark Reaper during his 10 years at Parkhead. McNamara believes Carter-Vickers is up there with the best of them, a modern defender who can do a bit of everything. He's strong and has a lot of attributes, McNamara said. He's been a terrific signing. Yeah, he's up there with some of the best, although he's not quite the same kind of player as Bobo. I played with some cracking centre-backs over the years, Johan Majalibi, Mark Reaper. Carter-Vickers has definitely been one who's been engaging an excellent signing. He's very steady and consistent. He can definitely play well as well. And with the way Ange sets his team up, he wants everybody to be able to play, including the goalie. He's been a great addition. As for other candidates, there remains plenty. Hatate would certainly be in the conversation. Japanese midfielder may just have the highest ceiling of any footballer in Scotland at this moment in time, and was arguably the Celtic player who looked most comfortable playing in the Champions League. His influence too has been enormous. There was a period before sustaining a recent injury where he again appeared to be kicking on to another level. He may not be outright favourite for POTY, but his virtuoso display in the home win over Aberdeen in February was possibly the best individual showing from any Celtic player this season. There's also a shout for Greg Taylor, whose transformation from occasional scapegoat into fan favourite has been one of the great success stories of the Postecoglou era. The former Kilmarnock defender has thrived in an inverted role which demands an awful lot more than your typical fullback duties. The arrival of Alexandro Bernabei has only served to kick Taylor on further, and the summer signing from Argentina has had its opportunities limited as a result. Taylor probably won't be the player who walks away with the trophy on awards night, but that he has even found himself in the conversation is testament to a significant rise to prominence. Cal McGregor is as the norm, will pick up at least a few votes. The captain, however, may find himself a victim of his own staggering consistency in that everyone has got a bit too used to him being excellent, and that's not a bad place to find yourself at all. That was by Liam Bruce. The Glasgow Times on the 20th of April and the sports section. Ex-Celtic boss Neil Lennon shocked choice for managerial position by Mark Walker. Neil Lennon is a shock choice to take charge of struggling Israeli club Hapoel Tel Aviv. The former Celtic and Hibs boss has been out of work since last October when he was axed by Cypriot club Omonia, despite leading them to a cup success and a Europa League group stages campaign where they narrowly lost twice to Manchester United. And he's been targeted to take charge of Hapoel Tel Aviv, who are in the relegation zone in the Israeli top flight after their league split. Hapoel have former Celtic head of operations Nick Hammond as their sports director, and he's told his board that Lennon would be an ideal candidate. Lennon himself even revealed in an interview last year that he would like to manage in Israel one day. He said, "I would definitely consider coaching an Israeli team. Israeli clubs have had success in Europe and it's somewhere that appeals to me." Hapoel are currently managed by Chaim Silvas, but he's set to leave the club at the end of the season, with Hapoel having just 4 league games left. They haven't won a league title for 13 years, and the Bloomfield Stadium outfit are desperate for success again and see 51-year-old Lennon as the man to deliver it after winning 10 trophies with Celtic as manager and a championship success with Hibs too. Meanwhile, Matt O'Reilly has admitted he finds Celtic teammate Kyogo Furuhashi's positive attitude incredible after a penalty miss failed to wipe the smile off the Japanese forward's face. Furuhashi opened the scoring in Celtic's 4-1 win at Kilmarnock on Sunday, but later hit the post with a spot kick to keep him on 29 goals for the season. O'Reilly, who scored 2 goals at Rugby Park, said he's probably the nicest man I've ever met. It's not just on the pitch with what you see, he's genuinely the nicest man I've ever met. That guy could miss 4 open goals in a game and still be smiling, which I find incredible. It shows the kind of guy he is, and it's really nice to have someone like that on your team. Regardless of whether they miss or score, they're still going to work hard. He knows he's already got, I don't know how many goals, so I don't think he's too fussed about missing one. And that was by Mark Walker. The Glasgow Times on the 20th of April and sports section. Michael Beale details Rangers recruitment plans ahead of summer deals by Christopher Jack. Michael Beale won't dismiss the data as lies, damn lies and statistics, but the numbers will be the end rather than the beginning for Rangers. It is a process of watching, listening and speaking, one of using the knowledge and experience built up over many years and trusting your judgment rather than your facts and figures. It's a process that Beale must master this summer. The acquisitions of Todd Cantwell and Nicholas Raskin in January were the first pieces of the Beale jigsaw to be put in place. Over the coming weeks, several more will have to be slotted into position as a Rangers squad and side is assembled in Beale's name and image. Beale is now leading the recruitment drive following the departure of Ross Wilson, the former sporting director, to Nottingham Forest. Every pound spent must be done so wisely, and the strike rate must be overwhelmingly positive if Rangers are to go from forlorn challengers to potential champions in the space of one season. It has never been easier to scout players than it is in the game today, and the information, be it video footage, detailed reports, or stats and graphs, is at the fingertips of the team of scouts and analysts that are based at Auchenhowie. Beale will use that resource to his benefit, but knows some things still need to be done the old-fashioned way. Yeah, I think your eyes. It's got to pass the test of your eyes, Beale said. Even with all the data and stuff like that, it's eyes first, and you use the data to back things up. Certainly not the other way round. It's important for us to have eyes on players and meeting them and doing a 360 around them. I think data has come into the game and it's fantastic, but when you go back to when I was here previously and we recruited Glenn Kamara, who was in and out of the Dundee team at the time, it was a curious one. But we weren't looking at that player playing for Dundee, we were looking at that player thinking, does he have the skill set to play for Rangers? With the way that we play and the dynamics of our club, that went on to be a really successful one. And the same when you watch young players like Calvin Bassey in a B-team game or Joe Aribo at Charlton. You have to make a judgment on whether you think that boy will be successful here. Those three were or are successful transfers from the club, for the club. It shows you it's not always about spending money. It is about knowing what is going to fit and what the group needs. Beale has been heavily involved in recruitment at various levels at each of the clubs he has worked at. He has rarely, if ever, faced a task like the one he has been presented with at Ibrox as Rangers gear up for their most significant summer since Steven Gerrard revolutionised the club 5 years ago. Beale was one of Gerrard's trusted lieutenants back then. Today, the 42-year-old takes guidance from assistant manager Neil Banfield and John Park, a man who has a track record that speaks for itself when it comes to doing deals. A description of the pair as the two wise old men is followed by a joke about how they sit and reminisce over the time when there was no back pass rule in the game. Beale knows, though, that those years at the highest levels are invaluable. Listen, there are people that I always bounce ideas off and people that have been around a long time, like John, Beale said. I have one on my staff in terms of Neil Banfield, and recruitment is always something I've been involved in at the clubs I've been at. When I identify a player, I send my trusted eyes to go and see them, and they will say to me, you need to go now, or you need to open up the dialogue and have that conversation. I'm someone that likes to sit in front of players and have a conversation about where they are going, making sure that we are on the same page, because I think that helps. I need to see how they fit in with the group. I think the evidence in that is the two boys that came in January. They have come in and settled well into the country, the team and the style of football. We had a lot of conversations prior to them signing. John is a hugely valuable member of staff. Even within my own coaching team, we have got scouts and we obviously watch a lot of football. The influence of Park over recent months has been significant. Alongside another of Beale's most valued support staff, Scout Mervyn Day, Park has helped identify the targets that Rangers will now look to bring to Ibrox. The infrastructure is greater in number and reach than it was when Beale first arrived alongside Gerrard. Park sits at the top of that pyramid, and his recommendation on a prospective player is enough to make anyone sit up and take notice. As always for Rangers, the timescales are tight and the margin for error is slim. The Champions League qualifiers just a few weeks later are already circled on the calendar, and Beale wants as much work done before then as possible. I'm going to push for it, Beale said. The first international break comes around September 3 or 4, and the window obviously shuts a couple of days before. By then, you've played 5 league games and possibly 2 or 4 European games. We know the start of our season is very important. It always has been. I remember when we were playing against Ufa, then Legia Warsaw, then Galatasaray. Last year it was PSV. Those moments are pivotal in the season because they set up the rest of the season. We have to get the squad we want in place by then. I want the squad in place as early as possible. We return to pre-season the last couple of days in June, and I expect to see some new faces returning that day. The number of arrivals remains a moving target. Beale has often spoken about adding 4 or 5 over the summer, and there is a desire to reduce the size of squad that is in need of a rejuvenation ahead of his first term in charge. Decisions on the likes of Scott Arfield and Stephen Davis have still to be made public, and the futures of Ryan Kent, most recently linked with Burnley, and Alfredo Morelos remain uncertain. That is before those still under contract have their situations assessed. I think it's huge, Beale said, of the upcoming period of wheeling and dealing. We can see that we have the foundations, but it's a big summer because there are some prominent players out of contract. Some big players who have been fantastic for club over the last few years and performed well. But it's natural we need to bring some freshness in. I think the fans want to see some fresh faces and energy as well. You can see how they've taken to the 2 new signings. It's important as well that I feel energised about the squad we've got, so I think we can achieve the targets ultimately we are setting ourselves. We're setting targets to win things and go and play in the Champions League again. It's fair to say the current squad might have to outperform itself to do that, so it needs help. There's barely been a week that's gone by where Beale has not been asked about his recruitment drive or the contract status of so many members of the squad that he inherited from Giovanni van Bronckhorst on his return to Ibrox. Beale has been counting down to the summer for some time. Sooner rather than later, he will have the chance to put all the planning into action and finally lay the foundations for the future. I had no choice about when the offer came, Beale said when asked if it would be a relief to be able to get on with the job. Certainly, as a manager, you'd prefer to come in at the start of pre-season and put your ideas across with good time and some warm-up games. Get the group fit, see what players you can move in and move out. I came right in the middle of a storm, if you like. In the main, I've been pleased with how it's gone. There's only been a couple of days of real disappointment. A lot of things have not been a shock to me. We have changed from one very strong chairman to another, so I don't see that as anything people can write down. We have moved from a strong chairman to a vice chairman, who I have a really good relationship. The only surprise I had was losing Ross as sporting director, but me and Ross were very clear on where the club needed to move forward, and we'd already identified a lot of the players. And that was by Christopher Jack. The Glasgow Times on the 20th of April and the sports section. Michael Beale in Rome amid Rangers transfer hunt by Adrian Smith. Michael Beale is in Rome amid his hunt for players ahead of the summer transfer window. The Rangers manager was vocal yesterday as he explained he would like to add 4 or 5 players to his squad for next season. Beale will also have to do without the help of sporting director Ross Wilson, who recently departed to Nottingham Forest. It now looks as though Rangers boss could be on a scouting mission in the Italian capital as he teased fans with pictures from Rome in his Instagram story. Fans have quickly put 2 and 2 together that Beale's trip could well be to meet with players possibly out of contract in the summer. The former QPR manager told TalkSport yesterday, "This group has given me what they can, and we're probably 4 or 5 players away from being where I want us to be. That's nothing against the players that are playing just now, it will just make us stronger." Certainly the first part of the season next year, with hopefully the Champions League, if not definitely the Europa League, we've got 14 or 15 weeks of 3-game weeks, and it's fair to say our squad needs more variety and depth, and I want us to play with more pace and energy. Obviously, Ross Wilson moved on last week, but a lot of the plans have been in place since I came here in November. It's something we've been constantly talking about every day, if you like, because we were so close in terms of here at the training ground. Now Ross has moved on, I'm leading that, and I've been away speaking to some players over the last couple of days, and it's something that's constantly ongoing in the background. I think in the short period right now, it may suit me better than someone coming in the middle of the work that we're doing. I feel like I've got really good support from John Park and the recruitment staff. A lot of the work's been done, it's now executing it. I'm quite fussy. I like to go and meet the players and see them face to face. That's how I did it with Nico Raskin and Todd Cantwell in January. It wasn't just the businessmen, if you like. I like to see the boys and sit in front of them. I've been away doing that in the last few weeks. Every day off and moment in the schedule that allows, I've been travelling to meet people along with Ross, and I'll continue doing that on my own. And that was by Adrian Smith. The Glasgow Times on the 20th of April and the sports section. Wrexham goalkeeper and Joe Hart record podcast at Celtic's Lennoxtown by Morgan Carmichael. A Welsh team goalkeeper has recently been spotted at Celtic's training ground. Wrexham's Ben Foster, who previously played for Manchester United, was all smiles as he took a selfie at Lennoxtown yesterday. The National League player visited the ground to film a new episode of his podcast Fozcast with Celtic keeper Joe Hart. The podcast was recorded on Hart's birthday, which saw the now 36-year-old posing with Foster and a chocolate birthday cake. Fans of the two keepers seemed delighted by the crossover. One person wrote, "That's great," while another commented, "Love it, wee man." You can watch all episodes of Fozcast on YouTube and Spotify. And that was by Morgan Carmichael.
From the Glasgow Times, Saturday the 22nd of April 2023, from the sports section, Celtic 1, Motherwell 1, champions held to rare home draw by Van Veen moment of class. And this report was by Liam Bryce. A collector's item in Glasgow's East End, as Celtic's relentless march towards the Premiership title was finally slowed, if only a little. Ange Postecoglou's side will still hoist the trophy high in May, but they were forced to settle for a draw against a Motherwell side reborn under Stuart Kettlewell. It is the first time in 17 attempts this season that any team has left Celtic Park with a league result, and the first time at all since Rangers managed a draw in May last year. Callum McGregor had given the host the lead with a deflected effort from range in the first half, and the game appeared to be meandering towards another routine Celtic victory until Kevin Van Veen took it upon himself to weave a pass to the home defence for a sumptuous equaliser. Here are 5 talking points from Parkhead. A rare stutter. Celtic have been near flawless in the Premiership this season, and they may yet reflect on that aberration in Paisley all the way back in September and feel an invincible campaign could well have been in their grasp. The winning run which has followed has been astonishing, with only Rangers capable of taking even a point from that at Ibrox at the turn of the year. Off days happen, though, and it was inevitable someone would leave Celtic Park with something to show for it at some point. Considering that the Premiership title race is practically a formality, it is difficult to read too much into this result, at least from a Celtic perspective. Motherwell, on the other hand, deserve the immense credit they will take for being the team to finally knock the champions-elect off their formidable stride. Kettlewell's team ran themselves into the ground from the first but whistle, grafting their way to a point that further underlines their revival under his management. Having been on an alarming slide not so long ago, they are now 10 points clear of bottom place. A captain's example. Celtic were not necessarily poor until the opening goal, but the final ball was not quite finding its mark, and the crowd had fallen rather flat. Their attacking game is built upon sharp passing and constant rotations, but, when the time was right, There remains plenty to be said for just having a speculative goal from distance to try and stir something inside the stadium. Even an effort that does not find the back of the net can force the keeper into action, get the crowd back into it, and have the opposition second guessing just how comfortable they really are keeping you at bay. Or, in this case, it can take a deflection and spin its way back into the back of Liam Kelly's net. This is McGregor's fourth goal of the season, and there are few who strike the ball as crisply as the Celtic captain. That technique is equalled by his willingness to take responsibility. It has always been said that the 29-year-old leads through his actions over words, and this was a perfect example. Van Veen's moment of class. Coming to this venue, where being prepared to suffer without the ball is a prerequisite, it really does help to have someone on the other end with a bit of magic up their sleeve. Motherwell will have that in Van Veen. The Dutch striker stakes a strong claim as being the most technically proficient footballer out with Celtic and Rangers in Scottish football. His touches are deft and intelligent, and, despite not being blessed with blistering pace, he has that rare ability to glide away from defenders without really looking like he's trying. He certainly managed to turn Greg Taylor inside out for the Motherwell's equaliser, leaving the left back in unflattering spin as he attempted to locate just where Van Veen had disappeared to. By the time Taylor realised the striker was in the process of sitting down Joe Hart with a wonderfully composed finish into the back of the Celtic net, his 24th of a stellar individual season. Hax's audition. This would shade Haksabanović's chance to really stake a claim for Hampden next week. A dazzling display here made it difficult for Postecoglou to leave him out at the National Stadium, but as the winner trudged off to be replaced by Oh Hyun-gu in the second half, it was clear he felt he had not shown what he is capable of. There were lingering fitness doubts around Jota and Lila Bada as the Derby week approaches, but with Postecoglou revealing both have been in training, the odds would suggest that at least one will be available next Sunday. Haksabanović has produced some magic moments off the bench, but some of his play suggested a player a little short in confidence, as well as the sharpness that only comes with playing regular football. On to Hampden for Celtic. With the league effectively done and dusted, it was hard to escape the feeling most inside Celtic Park had their minds drifting across the city to the south side, only to be given a jolt by Van Veen's out-of-the-blue equaliser. They did their level best to roar their side onto finding a winner, but it was not to be in this occasion. Still though, it is a blip that will be quickly forgotten with that what awaits. Beating Rangers in next week's Scottish Cup semi-final at Hampden would be a monumental step towards the treble for Postecoglou and his team. Until we move on to the customary full week of build-up that Celtic v Rangers commands, it should be typically serene. And that report was by Liam Bryce. From the Glasgow Times, Saturday the 22nd of April 2023, from the sports section, opinion. Rangers continue to be hamstrung by their troubled past. Report by Matthew Lindsay, chief football writer. Rangers' epic triumph over Celtic in the Scottish Cup semi-final at Hampden last year will be remembered forevermore by their followers. Coming from behind and beating their city rivals in extra time, denied the Parkhead club the chance to complete a fifth treble in 6 years, and was joyously celebrated by the red, white and blue clad hordes, both inside the stadium and watching on television. Yet, suggestions afterwards that the hard-fought and morale-boosting result would give Giovanni Van Bronckhorst charges of vital self-belief going into 2022-23 season proved to be ill-founded. The departures of Joe Aribo and Calvin Bassey, who had been the Ibrox outfit's standout performers during the run to the Europa League final, after they had overcome Hearts in the final the following month, coupled with an underwhelming recruitment drive, resulted in another bitterly disappointing Cinch Premiership campaign. Prevailing in the last four encounter with Ange Postecoglou's side in Mount Florida next week is certainly hugely important for Michael Beale's team. A victory will keep alive their hopes of lifting silverware this term and prevent a furious backlash from their fans. But a win will, as we have seen in the past 12 months, have absolutely no bearing on their long-term fortunes. What happens in the close season, who leaves and who's brought in, will determine whether they can lift the Scottish title. Sporting director Ross Wilson, who had been targeted by those who sit in the stands as as the Glasgow Giants fell no fewer than 12 points behind the defending champions in the league. Moving on from Nottingham Forest earlier this month will not hamper efforts to overhaul the squad. A list of potential targets was drawn up long before he exited. Are Rangers, though, really going to be able to part with the sums of money needed to build a side capable of going toe-to-toe with Celtic and vying for the major domestic honour? Their age-old adversaries continue to operate at a higher level to them off the park as well as on it, after years of shrewd stewardship at the boardroom, profitable player sales and European involvement. The news this week that the administrators of the Elite Sports Group Limited, who allege a contract which allowed Danish sportswear firm Hummel to provide first team kit, was breached when they signed a deal with Castori in 2020, plan to press ahead with a £9.5 million legal claim, showing they have no means to put their troubled past behind them. It remains to be seen what the outcome of that case will be, but previous court rulings have certainly hurt and hampered their progress. Their last annual account showed back in November that they had been forced to shell out £8.25 million to Sports Direct owner Mike Ashley, following a lengthy and costly dispute. A profit of £5.9 million was, thanks to the January sale of Nathan Patterson to Everton and their exploits on the continent, posted. But Van Bronckhorst spent little for £10 million in new acquisitions in the last close season, and it showed, not least in the Champions League group stages in the months which followed. They can, then, ill afford to be hit with another hefty bill now. The former Rangers Director of Football, Gordon Smith, expressed a view in these pages this week that good scouting and smart thinking in the transfer market can compensate for having an inferior budget. They have certainly punched above their weight before. Their Premiership success in 2021 and Europa League performances last term were achieved against all odds and can do so again. The impacts that Todd Cantwell and Nico Raskin have had since joining for Norwich City and Standard Liège respectively back in January augur well for the future. Still, the gulf with Celtic is so vast, both in terms of quality and strength and depth, just now, and the surgery which is required so extensive. Ageing and underperforming players need to be offloaded and decent replacements found, that they'll be doing very well to catch their new neighbours and become the dominant force in the country once again next season. Beale expressed the view that Rangers are just 4 or 5 players away from being able to do so during an interview with TalkSport this week. But with Ryan Kent and Alfredo Morelos almost certain to move on, and the features of Scott Arfield, Stephen Davis, Glenn Kamara and Alan McGregor doubtful, he will surely need several more. It will be interesting to see if the purse strings are loosened by his paymasters this summer, if any of the money banked from Aribo and Bassi will be freed up, if valuable lessons have been learned from last year. However, at the moment it is, as they continue to wrestle with historical issues no fewer than 11 years after their financial implosion, very difficult to envisage Rangers having anything other than cup wins, like the one they'll be bidding to record against Celtic on Sunday week, to savour. And that report was by Chief Football Writer Matthew Lindsay. From the Glasgow Times, Monday the 24th of April 2023, from the sports section, Alfredo Morelos' Aberdeen vs Rangers display blasted by BBC pundit. Report by Aidan Smith. Aberdeen hero Willie Miller has blasted Alfredo Morelos for his non-existent performance at Pittodrie yesterday. Michael Beale's Gers were defeated 2-0 in the Granite City as they failed to take advantage of Celtic dropping points against Motherwell on Saturday. Morelos played the entire 90 minutes for Rangers and he failed to make an impact on proceedings as he attempted to lead the line. Blasting the performance of the Colombian on Radio Scotland, Miller said, "As for Alfredo Morelos, I'm sorry. If I had anything to do with him, he wouldn't last until the end of the season. If I was a teammate of his, I couldn't take that. I just couldn't take that. He played a big part in the first goal as well. I said that at the time. The ball is played up to him and he makes a timid effort to shield the ball from Liam Scales, and he is strong and goes past him. If you have a sharp striker in the game that means something for him, then he doesn't allow that to happen. I'm sorry, but I just thought throughout the game he was non-existent. I just couldn't play with someone like that. At the very least, you're asking for effort. He just didn't give that. He looks as though he isn't interested, to be perfectly honest. Leanne Crichton then added, "Shocking, wasn't he? Outrageous. Absolutely outrageous. Even if you weren't too concerned about the result of performance against Aberdeen, and you look ahead to next week, if you were naive enough to do that, he doesn't make the starting 11 next week based on that performance. If there are other options available, I thought he was absolutely non-existent." On the match, Rangers boss Michael Beale bemoaned his team's ability to take their chances. He said, "We started the game quite well. Big chances, a fantastic clearance off the line from Alfredo Morelos' shot earlier in the game, and then a really good team move, and we see Fashion Sakala go through one-on-one with the goalie. Borna Barisic hits the post, then Nico Raskin gets in and shoots when maybe he should give the ball to Malik Tillman for a simple tap-in. We had another big chance today with Rabbi Matondo, and we've had great chances with Jim Tavernier as well. We come in as a away team today, have 6 Masters opportunities, and we take none. In every game we play, we have missed more chances than we have taken. Regardless of how many goals we have scored, we are a team that's been quite wasteful, and you would always say that this is better to create chances, that is a good sign. But you have to take them. As an away team today, how dominant we were at times, we have to take our chances." And that report was by Aidan Smith. From the Glasgow Times, Monday the 24th of April 2023, from the sports section, Celtic manager Ange Postecoglou Premier League offer matter of time, by David Irvin. Micah Richards reckons it is only a matter of time before a Premier League club offers Ange Postecoglou a job as manager. The Celtic boss was name-checked in a report outlining a number of possible candidates for the vacant Chelsea job. Postecoglou, quoted as a surprise outsider, has earned plaudits for his work at Celtic with the club, on course for a second successive league crown, having already claimed 2 League Cup wins. Now, pundit Richards has revealed his expectation for a Premier League club to come in for Postecoglou, with Leeds, Everton and Leicester among previous roles with which Postecoglou has been touted. The ex-Manchester City player has discussed Postecoglou with former teammate Joe Hart, who has thrived since his move to Parkhead. Writing in the Daily Mail, Richards commented, "It was interesting to see Ange Postecoglou linked with the Chelsea job. I spoke to Joe Hart shortly after he joined Celtic in August 2021, and he raved about his new manager, particularly about his character and outlook on life. He plays brave football, and Joe said nothing flusters him. It is only a matter of time before a club here takes a plunge on him." It's reported that Postecoglou is on the shortlist for the next Chelsea manager, having impressed club chiefs with his work at Celtic in Scotland and Europe. However, it's thought Mario Pochettino is currently the preferred candidate for the Chelsea job. Burnley manager Vince Kompany is also reportedly an option, with Feyenoord's Arne Slot another outsider for the position. Chelsea have spoken to Luis Enrique and Ruben Amorim, but the pair are not thought to be frontrunners for the job. And that article was by David Irvin. From the Glasgow Times, Monday the 24th of April 2023, from the sports section, Michael Beale pinpoints Rangers' problems after Aberdeen defeat. Report by Christopher Jack. Michael Beale lamented Rangers' profligacy in the final third, as a series of missed chances cost him dear against Aberdeen. The Englishman suffered the second Premiership defeat of his reign, as his side fell 13 points adrift of Celtic at the top of the table. A speculative second half effort from Liam Scales and a Bojan Miovski header were enough to clinch the points for Barry Robson's side. But Beale was left frustrated with the manner in which his side operated in both boxes, as a handful of scoring opportunities were squandered. Rangers now turned their attentions to the Scottish Cup semi-final with Celtic, and boss Beale said, "We started the game quite well. Big chances, a fantastic clearance from Alfredo off the line earlier in the game, and then a really good team move, and we see Fashion Sakala go through one-on-one with the goalie. Borna hits the post, then Nico gets in and shoots when maybe he should have given the ball to Malik for a simple tap-in. You go in at half-time being dominant. Aberdeen were struggling to get a foothold in the game. You know what the second half can bring. The first goal was obviously a bit of a freak goal, and then I didn't really like our reaction for 10 or 15 minutes. I thought we reacted poorly. I thought one or two started taking extra touches. I thought Aberdeen pressed down well on us. Obviously, kept playing forward and pressing down and played pressure football. We have to stay in the game at that moment. We have to defend that far post better. In the build-up, there might have been a foul, but we have got to play on and do our jobs better, because after that, there will be chances, and there was. We had another big chance with Rabbi. We have a huge chance with James as well. We come as an away team today and have six massive opportunities, and we take none. We have to take our medicine and go down the road and push it to one side to focus on next week. And that report was by Christopher Jack. From the Glasgow Times, Monday the 24th of April 2023, from the sports section: referee named for Rangers vs Celtic Scottish Cup semi-final. Report by David Irvin. Willie Collum has been named as the referee for the Scottish Cup semi-final between Rangers and Celtic. The Whistler has been selected as the man in the middle for the powder keg clash at the National Stadium. Collum will be assisted by linesman Daniel McFarlane and Dougie Potter, with Don Robertson the fourth official. Stephen McLean is the VAR official, with Frank Connor the assistant VAR. This weekend will be Collum's first time in charge of a match between the Glasgow rivals this season. Nick Walsh was in charge for Celtic's 4-0 win in September last year, and John Beaton was the man with the whistle in the 2-2 draw at the start of the year. Walsh was again the official in the Viaplay Cup final meeting with Celtic victorious, and Kevin Clancy was refereeing the 3-2 win for Celtic earlier this month. Kick-off in the Scottish Cup semi-finals is at 1:30pm on Sunday, April the 30th, and that report was by David Irvin. That concludes this week's edition of the Glasgow Times Sports Podcast. Please remember to subscribe to our channels at Q&Review and to tell your friends about our service.